what do you think of this proposed budget of 27.5 trillion naira? I mean, what were your first thoughts? Let's hear it.
It's a good place to start to stabilize and walk the country out of its current economic doldrum. As far as size is concerned, it is not particularly big. In reality, if you convert last year's budget to dollars and this year to dollars as well, you'll be surprised that it's not even an increase on what we had last year. So in terms of size, it is tiny, but I also understand the fact that there is no way we can dramatically rev up our revenue within a short period. So it's a welcome development. The areas of focus are quite interesting. So my admonition to the government would be that we have a commitment to a disciplined execution of the budget. Hitherto, the way we have treated budget, we have not treated it as a critical planning document, but that is what it is. So I'm hoping that this time around, there will be a disciplined execution of the critical items of that 2024 budget.
Now let's look at the 7-point agenda, which included national defense, job creation, poverty reduction, macroeconomic stability, investor environment optimization, human capital development, social security. Isn't this similar to last year's agenda? Why do we keep seeing this same agenda? What has changed? What is different now compared to the previous agenda?
In terms of what has changed, nothing much has changed. And the reason is not far-fetched because those problems that we're trying to solve are still here with us. So if you take the issue of insecurity, we've been on it for over a decade. And unfortunately, it is not Uhuru yet. Of course, there might have been some wins here and there. For example, it is fair to say that the Northeast is not as hot as it used to be. But that is not to say everything has calmed down. I think about a week ago, they were still kidnapped in Zamfara State by people who were collecting taxes. We have bandits who are collecting taxes, who came to town to kidnap people for not paying taxes. So the insecurity is still there. I can even share with you a personal experience. I have a partner that I do some agric investment with, sometimes somewhere in the middle belt of Nigeria. And we have done some rice and cowpea this year. On the last off-season election date, I think that was November 17 or thereabout, some herders took their cattle into our cowpea farm and grazed the cattle on the cowpea farm. When they left the cowpea farm, they marched into the rice farm. Meanwhile, here I am still paying loan. Got loan to do some agric investment, and then some cattle have been grazed on the farm that were, So when you have those kind of situations, it endangers the food security for the nation. It also adds on to the inflationary pressure that we are, sorry, the inflationary pressure in the country. Don't forget that food inflation is a major driver of our composite inflation figure. So for as long as the food prices are high, for as long as farmers are scared to go to the farm and plant, those who have planted are worried about being killed on their own farms. So people even planted, and to go and harvest becomes a problem. For as long as all those insecurity issues remain there, it will be difficult for us as a nation to have food sufficiency or food security, as the case may be, and we will find it difficult to fight inflationary pressure because food will remain expensive.
I was going to mention all of that. I mean, you've just highlighted the issues with insecurity, but Bola Tinubu stated that he outlined the fact that there will be an overhauling of the internal security architecture to enhance enforcement, capabilities within the nation. Now, how do you think they can go about this? What can they do differently? Because these are the same things we hear over and over again. What's difference? What will be done differently this time around to ensure that insecurity is curbed to the barest minimum in the country?
I will still put it at the doorstep of disciplined execution. Let me tell you what has happened in the case that I share with you. It's a personal case. Some of the headers were eventually arrested. Estimates were made of a few millions of damage, but the offer where there was a particular farmer who was also affected, his own estimate of damage was about 2.5 million. The offer from the cattle headers was 30,000 naira. So 30,000 naira as a compensation for a 2.5 million naira damage. And the view of the Farmers Association was that there were certain compromises involving the security agency. And that was why this thing has been proceeding the way it is proceeding. So I will put what we need to do differently at the footstep of disciplined execution. Somebody must be watching from whatever is going on. So if there are security agencies in the field, there must be oversight on their action. What is going on at their field of operation? There must be feedback so that when things are not going right, there will be intervention at the right level. We must also address issues around the welfare of people that we're putting in the front. If a soldier is in the front line and he has cause for concern about his own welfare, then we are jeopardizing the assignment because there may be compromises. So we must address this thing holistically. Welfare of security agencies must be taken care of. Salaries paid when due, allowances made available when due. Other concerns that affect them are also dealt with. At the same time, in those theaters of operations, there must be a mechanism that gathers information and feedback and give it to the bosses who may not be in the forefront, so that when things are going wrong, they know in time, they can intervene and they can realign the strategy to deliver on what we seek to deliver. These are some of the things we need to do differently. Otherwise, next year, the same thing will still be there. The year after, it will still be the same thing, trying to cure the same problem for over a decade.
Now, looking at the agricultural sector, you've already highlighted it about how farmers are even scared to go to their farms, and of course that is causing inflation in food price, and of course the food circulation even in the country is greatly depreciated. But what would you say about the mobilization of security agents, to parts of, because there was an issue of them saying security agents would be withdrawn from, from celebrities and people in power and all that, so that we can have enough hands, to ensure security in Nigeria. What can the government do to, to ensure that more security agents, join the force to ensure that there is a level of security in Nigeria?
Now, there was actually an agenda in that direction started by the previous administration. So I believe some recruitment have been going on, both into the military and the police force. As a matter of fact, a younger friend of mine who had been trying to get into the army sent me an information yesterday that I think he's been invited for certain preliminary stuff regarding that recruitment. So I'm aware that certain recruitment are going on. However, you mentioned something that I think I should speak to. The issue of, we're going to withdraw policemen from some VIPs and all that. I've been hearing it for 2-3 decades. I can't remember for as long as that's been. The only problem is that it has not happened. So should I trust that it will happen? Honestly, I don't have any trust. I'll just have to watch. When it happens, we know it has happened. Otherwise, it remains what it is, just a fanciful speech about pulling out pulling the security men that attack VIPs. I'm not sure it will happen until it eventually happens. The reason why this VIP, and this is the funny thing about the country, the reasons these VIPs need policemen is a vote of no confidence on the security of the environment. If you think your environment is secure, then why do you, as a politician, need all that retinue, or the VIP need all that retinue of security men? It's your own vote of no confidence in the security environment. Now, as a decision maker, or as someone who has a role in also helping to rejig the security of the environment, what are you doing about that? Are you just comfortable with the fact that you think that your own security, as long as you are secure, then maybe it doesn't matter what happens in the rest of in your environment? Until we cure that kind of a mentality, which I believe that maybe if we pull off some of the security men from VIP, maybe they will begin to focus on the real issue, because they also now get exposed as much as the rest of us. So security is a general thing and is the responsibility of everybody, including the VIPs. Let us take a second look at that nexus, and maybe after decades of mouthing the issue of withdrawing policemen from VIP, maybe we'll be able to do it. I don't know, but it's something left to be seen. However, the critical matter is the involvement of everybody in security. When you see something, you say something. At the level of individuals, at the level of the community, at the level of traditional rulers, everybody needs to get involved. But the government has the primary #1 role, because that is constitutional. The security and welfare of the people is the primary responsibility, is the primary reason that we even have a government. So they have to do a lot. But maybe the funding being made available, I think about 3.25 trillion for under 2024 budget will help to bring something to the table as far as improving the security of the environment is concerned. Let me give kudos to our security men who are in the front line. A lot is going on, a lot is happening, but a lot more still has to be done.
Really has to be done. Now, going back to the budget, do you think 27.5 trillion naira is sufficient to carry out all of this agenda, the 7-point agenda? Do you think it is sufficient? I mean, last year it was about 21 point something trillion naira, and that's just about 5 trillion naira difference compared to what it is now. Do you think this is sufficient? Because I don't know how far you could enlighten us on that as well. We don't know how far the budget for last year went in ensuring, in trying to curb most of all of these issues we have in Nigeria. Do you think this new budget would be sufficient?
Well, the new budget can set the foundation, and it can begin to direct us in the right way that we should. But that whether it is sufficient for a 200 million people economy, the answer is actually no. Let me give you an indication as to how small it is. South Africa is a 60 million people economy. The 2022-23 budget for South Africa is about 4 times or 5 times, about 5 times this 27.5 trillion naira that you are talking about, 5 times. So it gives you an indication that while it appears staggering, it is a token. It doesn't cut it. But then, can we at least make the best use of what we have in the place of disciplined execution, and let it count for the people? That is the plea. So while it is not enough, it can set the foundation for stability. It can set the foundation for improved security environment. It can set the foundation for improved social environment, and we can build on it going forward.
Indeed. Now, what do you think are the challenges that would hinder everything put in place right now to ensure security in Nigeria, what are the other challenges that would hinder, us from seeing the benefits of this amount of money put into security and to ensure security in Nigeria? What do you think would hinder the possibility of this really happening?
It's a corruption environment. What corruption does is that it frustrates the commitment to making those numbers they're talking about to count for us as Nigerians. But if we are able to keep our eyes on the ball, and this will also include ordinary citizens, the NGOs, the civil society organizations, to get involved in our budget monitoring. The beautiful thing about the budget is that it's a public document. The details are available and they are typically put on the website of the budget office of the Federation. If you even want the past 4 or 5 years, you will see it there. So by the time the detailed approved budget is there on the site, people need to show more interest and put the operators on their toes, ask questions, raise challenges, and maybe by so doing, we can help in the area of discipline execution if we ask questions and put them on their toes. I'll give you a very good example. Recently, there was this issue of a letter written by Mr. Doherty in Lagos to the executive governor of Lagos, asking for certain information or clarification or pointing direction at certain expenditures of the government. How was he able to do that? Number one, he knew that the information is public information. It is available. You can get it. So he got it. He reviewed it. After he has reviewed it, then he was able to raise certain issues and write a letter about it. That is the kind of involvement that more Nigerians and civil society organizations need to get involved. When we do that, we're able to put the operators on their toes, and it might just help us with the disciplined execution of these numbers that we have on it.
Indeed. Now you spoke on involvement of citizens. Now, how do you think the agricultural sector can thrive and fight against this issue of insecurity? Do we go the way of investment? What can the government do to get people to invest in this sector and also ensure the security of farmers in Nigeria?
Okay, I'm going to tell you something right away. Because of my experience in the farming activity that I got involved with this year, I'm not looking forward to going into another planting season. I'm still paying down on my loan. Meanwhile, cattle have been grazed on my farm or on the farm that I co-invested in. So I'm not particularly excited. So what that says to me is that government must address those issues. We up till now, we have not addressed the farmer elder issues with the kind of finality that one will expect. Can we confront it? Can we discuss it? And how do we encourage investments? If I will put my money on the table and I'm not so sure I will get anything out of it. So we've spoken in this country about grazing, and we've spoken about how open grazing must be discouraged, how there must be ranching, how cows and cattle and all, must be kept in ranches, how government may need to intervene to intervene not just from a security perspective, but from an economic perspective, to ensure that ranching will happen. Because without the economic side of the intervention, ranching will not happen in this country. It won't. It's just a joke. So those are some of the things that will help agricultural or crop producers to feel comfortable to go into that farm, knowing that Nobody is coming to machete them on their farm. And nobody is coming to graze farms on their sweat of several months. So, sorry, we must go in the direction of solving those problems at those levels to encourage agriculturists to be able, or farmers rather, to go into the farm and produce what we need for us. If we don't do that, we're just wasting time. Other things that needed to be done is we have realized, for example, that we're not planting enough, we're not cultivating enough acreage. And I'm delighted that the current government, at some point, that was in the July address by the president, spoke about 500,000 hectares of land that will be put into farming. That particular address spoke about irrigation. It spoke about commercial farming. So we have realized that we don't have enough commercial farm. What we're doing is subsistence farming. So we want to do more commercial farming. We want to do more irrigated farming. We want to put 500,000 hectares more into farmland, into farming. Let's begin to do it. It is not enough for those things to be said on paper. We must begin to do it. And in the place of doing it is that we want to see the corn going into the soil, the rice going into the soil, and the plants. And when harvest season comes, there is multiplication of harvest. That is in the place of doing. So we must take things out of the books and out of the speeches into the field and begin to make them happen.
Now, Mr. Bolahon, as a public and policy analyst, what would you, how would you advise the populace to hold the government accountable to ensure transparency and accountability, you know, on the side of the government? What can we do to hold them responsible and hold them to their words? You know, they say they are going to do this for the agricultural sector. How do we hold them accountable if they fail, you know, on their word, basically?
We continue to demand. Like I said earlier in this meeting, the budget is a public information. It's typically on the website. You just go on the website of Budget Office of the Federation. You will see not only the big numbers, you will see all the allocation to every ministry's department and agencies of government, including the teaching hospital that is in your state. All of them are there. And not only are they there, they are broken down into the capital expenditure, the personnel cost, and all those other breakdowns. So if you want to know that, oh, this particular hospital, there is a budget for an MRI machine this year, it will be there. You can see it. So since we know that this information are there, let's show more interest, get those information, and be able to ask questions along the way. I give the example of what Mr. Doherty did last week in Lagos about the Lagos expenditure. All of us, each and every one of us can do it. Civil society organizations can do it. So when we see things that do not accord or that require further clarification, then we ask questions. Things that doesn't look as if, that don't look as if they are going in the right direction, we ask questions from the executive. We have the right to ask questions. Or we can go to the lawmakers and put it to them and raise petitions, you know, to the lawmakers. These are things we can all do in the place of participation. We can be more involved in what is going on, ask more questions, raise petitions, and we will be able to put operators on their toes as far as 2024 is concerned.
Very much for that one. Now, how can government now effectively engage and collaborate with relevant stakeholders, which includes, of course, security agencies, local communities, and civil society organizations to achieve the desired security goals or outcomes?
There's something called management by walkaround, walking around. And what essentially does it say? It says that the boss must, from time to time, take a walk on the floor, on the shop floor. Of course, the boss has the people that report to him, the director of this, the director of that. They are all big people. But that occasionally, these bosses should take a walk on the shop floor and have an engagement with ordinary people, ordinary worker on the shop floor. Because sometimes the feedback that you get from the shop floor is totally different from what you get from your director of this and director of that. And it helps you to have a good feel of what is going on. So it would be nice that there are more engagements from CEOs of, various government agencies who have responsibility for decision making, engagement at various levels, including what you call, you have all this in some other countries what we call state of the nation address, where the president have a press engagement as well. In the course of the press engagement, you have many press people who are more in touch with the road, with the street, and can bring the perspective of the street directly to the decision makers and ask them questions. So by so doing, there are connections that go beyond what the big boys are telling the big boss. So the big boss is able to relate more to what is going on the street beyond what he is being told. It is something we may need to look at doing more. A situation in which people at the decision-making level have conferences or events or engagement that allow them to have a direct connectivity or connection to the ordinary citizen.